You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam. Streaming on iTunes and at facebook.com/DCAU Review. Now, here's today's episode.
When crime haunts the night, a silent crusader carries the torch of justice. Those with evil hearts, beware, for out of the darkness comes the Grey Ghost.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 25 of the DCAU Review. I am your co-host, Cal, and with me today, as he has been for the previous 24 editions of the DCAU Review, is my good brother and friend, Liam. Liam, welcome to episode 25. Hard to believe we've made it through 25 of these already.
It's our silver episode.
There we go.
Or no, that's not only for anniversaries. I don't know.
I didn't get you anything, just so you know. Sorry.
Well, we got a pretty memorable episode to talk about here.
Yes,
today.
we
That's
do.
our present to each other.
Our present to each other is we get to discuss one of the most loved episodes in the history of Batman the Animated Series, at least from what I would say.
Absolutely.
It's held in pretty high regard, and that is Beware the Grey Ghost. Liam, this is a classic one. I can remember watching this. It's funny how nostalgic I get now watching this episode about Bruce Wayne being nostalgic about his hero and watching his hero as a child. But this episode is really, really, really fun. And I remember it holding a near and dear spot in my heart growing up. And I was excited to review it today. There's a couple things that stick out in this episode, positive and negative. So I'm looking forward to talking about this episode today. What are your memories about this episode?
Yeah, I always remember that when we were a kid, the 60s Batman show was still in reruns on
FX.
Yes.
Back before FX was like a real network.
Yes, it was just showing old sitcoms and
old
movies.
CBS television shows.
Yeah, so it used to air quite often on there. So we were familiar with that on West Batman growing up, and so I always remember knowing, oh, the old Adam West Batman is the guy who's voicing the Grey Ghost here. So I remember that. I remember liking the episode well enough, but I always remember it wasn't necessarily near the top of my list when I was a kid. Now, when I went back and watched it when I was a bit older, it rises up the list for you, I think.
Sure.
But it's also, what we've talked about off the air, it's different when you're watching this just to watch it versus when you're watching it to review it. You have to be a little more critical, you have to be a little more analytical with the way you watch these shows, and it does change some things.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think in my opinion, probably would have been if we had done this, a blind review of this, we probably would have given it probably a perfect score, just because we hold it, the nostalgia of it and everything that fits together, I think would lead us to believe that. But I guess in that case, that's a good segue to start our scorecard here, Liam. And in case somebody's just joining us for the 25th episode of the DCAU Review, let's remind them our categories that we review at home.
Yeah, we have 4 main categories. Each we can rank from 0 to 10. It's plot, music, visuals / animation, and a last category, of course, being voice acting, which will be our total scores will be something out of 40, and we also do have bonus points that we can dish out depending on whether or not they are covered in those 4 main categories, or if they just deserve special mention. So
absolutely, and thus far we've had one perfect episode.
Correct.
Out of our 25 that we've done between Superman the Animated Series and Batman the Animated Series, that being Heart of Ice, which if you haven't checked that episode out, please go back, not only watch the episode but listen to our review.
Absolutely.
It's a great episode to check out. So let's jump right in. We always start, Liam, with plot. So the plot of this episode is a little bit based in reality, and we've talked about a couple episodes that are based in reality that make it uncomfortable, that are a little uncomfortable to talk about. But this one is interesting, and it's not uncomfortable for us because we're not career actors, certainly.
Yeah.
But the character Simon Trent, the guy who played this character Grey Ghost, that was one of Bruce's favorite television shows as he was growing up. He calls him his hero, the person he's clearly modeled a lot of his career as a crime fighter. Upon it, this guy Simon Trent, who also his life sort of mirrors a little bit of the real life Adam West, in that he had a career where he was a well-known character, and he's pretty much only known as that character. People only see him as that character going forward. He's having a hard time getting cast in roles, and he's having trouble paying the bills.
Yeah.
And you get to see kind of the dark side of that when you're typecast or when you play such an iconic role, how it's hard for you to kind of break out of that, and people really only want to associate you with that role going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's scenes where he's selling his Grey Ghost merchandise just to make rent for another month, and he's miserable. There's a scene where he's on the phone to his agent, basically begging him to get him a job just so he has enough money to put food on the table, and it's real powerful stuff. And as you said, I was interested in the fact that Adam West was receptive. Like, I feel like you have to not have a giant ego about yourself to do something that is semi-autobiographical. Now, I'm sure Adam West was never nearly evicted from his one-bedroom apartment after he was Batman. I'm sure residuals and things like that. And
I don't know.
starring.
Some of those the rights for the '60s Batman series were tied up for so long.
That's true.
I don't know how much. Reruns maybe he was getting some residuals from.
And I do know he was doing a lot of like personal appearances and conventions. As a wrestling tie-in, he was on an episode of Memphis Wrestling with Jerry the King Lawler once in the 70s. Like, he was not he was not a superstar.
Right.
And obviously this is well before the era of the internet or podcasts or other networks picking up your show. Although, famously, the 60s Batman show was almost picked up for another season.
Right.
Unfortunately, the sets had been destroyed already.
Sad.
So it couldn't get moved to another station. But that is a real thing, and that was an era where if you're an out-of-work actor who are only known for one thing, you can do conventions, and that's kind of it.
Right.
Like, you don't really get to go do a different role. At least not a lot of actors do. So seeing Adam West obviously was receptive enough to not only let that be a part of the episode, but to play a somewhat autobiographical role of that actor who is sort of almost haunted by his previous success, which is sort of dried up now.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of the plot. I think that we, breaking the fourth wall, see. But the plot of the episode itself, I think what works in this episode, which we'll talk about first, is, for me at least, was giving Bruce as a character more depth. You get to see it makes him more of a human. You see him, so often he's just the emotionless, justice-seeking Batman, the vengeance, the knight. That's who Batman is. But this adds a bit of humanity to him in that you see him as a child, and that he's capable of having nostalgic feelings towards things that
he smiles a lot in this episode.
Yeah. It's very odd. But to see him interact with somebody that he has placed on a pedestal, and even though he's disappointed in their initial kind of interaction where Simon Trent tells him he's not the Grey Ghost, is a role he played, and Batman's a little bit dejected maybe in that he doesn't give up on him, and it's a testament to Batman and his character that he's willing to give people multiple chances, and I think that's what works for me. What do you think worked for you in this episode?
Yeah, a lot of what you just said covers it there. Just that idea of Batman. It's a little bit of also an insight into why Batman went the route he did. He mentions sort of offhandedly that the Batcave happens to look exactly like the Grey Ghost's lair.
This place is amazing. It's just like the Grey Ghost's lair. It's almost an exact replica. Let me show you something else. As a kid, I used to watch you with my father. The Grey Ghost was my hero.
So it wasn't all for nothing.
Some of his gadgets are similar and things like that. So seeing that character have that influence.
He's even a nerd and has a whole like display case
yes,
of
in the
items.
back of the Batcave, which of course famously comes up later in Batman Beyond.
Right.
But where they have the full-on trophy case at that point. But it's like this little tucked-away back room where he has all his Grey Ghost merch.
Right.
And
So cool.
it is really interesting just to see that different side of Bruce Wayne. And it's a little bit, we don't see Thomas Wayne a lot during this series. Obviously, there's a Perchance to Dream later on, but you don't see a lot of Bat or Bruce interacting with his dad, and that's one of the I think more famous lines of this episode. I know it was in our household was I used to watch you with my father,
Right.
and like so that bit of tied in also, which of course everything with Batman has to come back to his parents,
Sure.
because that's what made him Batman. So that tied in as like this is one of the few happy memories of his childhood that he has. And he's sort of struck by now this guy at first doesn't want anything to do with them, and he's hurt. He's hurt by it. He's disappointed in it. So I think that works really well. The stuff that doesn't work so well, and I guess we can go ahead and give our scores here. I went 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, should say something because as complimentary as we have been, the other half of this episode is toy cars bombing buildings, including at one point Batman and the Grey Ghost just let bombs go off in the middle of the street.
And celebrate!
And they drive away like, we did it! Only half a city block got destroyed while we were getting chased by tiny robot or remote control cars. And then we turned out that the villain, of course, is
Bruce Timm.
Yes, literally is Bruce Timm, visually and voice-wise, which we'll get into in a little bit. But it's an evil toy collector who owns a toy store that Simon Trent has sold a lot of his Grey Ghost merchandise to.
He's every nerd, and he just wants
Yes.
more toys.
That's what he says. He's like, I need money so I can buy even more toys. It's so silly and wacky and kind of like an Adam West villain almost,
Yeah.
an Adam West Batman villain, and maybe part of that was the homage, but it's like you have this really thick layered stuff on one side of the Batman Grey Ghost relationship and meeting your heroes and that kind of stuff, completely undercut in my opinion by this completely goofy, silly, outlandish villain. So yeah, I went 5 out of 10. The stuff that's good is really good,
Right.
but the other stuff, it just kind of pulled me out of it. What about you?
Yeah, I gave a similar score. Not the same.
Not the same.
6 out of 10. And my biggest problem, if you're going to have all this deep, heavy stuff, we go back to it being a children's cartoon first and foremost.
Yeah.
Okay, your villain is a evil toy collector. Okay, Superman has Toyman, and you have other weird supervillains with
Man,
idiosyncrasies.
he and Toyman should have teamed up.
Really, that
New
would
Batman Adventures.
I know. Maybe we can petition WB to make a follow-up movie, and then Toyman and whatever this guy's evil. He didn't have it like evil.
The Toy
name.
Collector
The Toy
or
Collector.
something.
Yeah, there we go. We just named him. But the whole thing is you have this. So you have the super heavy, overarching adult plot with undercut, sure, by the kitty. All right, he just wants to collect more toys.
Yes.
And I think that even that could have worked a little bit better. There were two things that stood out to me. One was this mystery of who the person was isn't really given time to breathe. You have Batman discover the car with Simon Trent's fingerprints on it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like Simon Trent is the Mad Bomber. This guy, he needs money. It makes perfect sense. Like, he's down on his luck. He needs money. Why wouldn't he try? He's mad at the world because they see him as this like typecast actor. Why wouldn't he be crazy enough to blow up, up places for ransom? But you're not given time to breathe. It's like 30 seconds, and then Simon Trent's like, oh, but wait, no, it's not me. It's the toy collector I sold these to. And then the next scene is Batman in the toy collector's place.
What did you find?
You, Simon Trent.
That's not possible.
Your prints are on this car. You had the only copy of the show. The Mad Bomber followed the show step by step.
But I'm not the Mad Bomber, Batman. I'm not. I sold my Grey Ghost cars months ago to pay for my... No.
It can't be him.
It's like you're not given the time to even think about, like, oh my gosh, what if Batman's hero isn't a hero?
Yeah.
And so maybe this is an episode where you cut Cat in the Claw that we did a couple weeks ago, and you make it a one-parter, and this you're given a second part to. You know, you had the idea before we went on the air of, you know, oh, maybe Batman has to arrest the Grey Ghost at that point, but then later on in the second part, the bombings continue, so Batman realizes that maybe Grey Ghost isn't the guy, and then then the two of them kind of team up at the end. But because of the way that this worked, it just kind of didn't really work for me. The second part was just how the ending happened. There's no sort of Batman doesn't get a chance to pummel Bruce Timm's face in.
No,
so it's just Grey Ghost swings through a window.
I was gonna say Bruce Timm has Batman dead to rights.
Yeah.
Batman's surrounded by exploding cars and robots and little toy robots, and then 65-year-old Simon Trent comes swinging through the window, does a swinging kick through a window, and then like a little flip, and then a fire starts and all the bombs go off, and they run out of the building.
And then Bruce Timm cries.
No! My toys! My toys! My beautiful toys!
Right.
So yeah, because of that, I just gave it a 6 out of 10. I think the stuff that's good, like you said, is really good. The other stuff, not so good.
It's a styles clash, if you will.
There you go. Crossover. All right, man. Let's move on to our visuals and animation, because I have a lot to talk about in this section, but I'll let you give yours first, because I have a little bit of rage that's pent up, and I'm trying not to scream through the microphone.
And what I think I've noticed is that visuals matter a lot more to you, and
Very much so.
And a few things can hurt your things that aren't necessarily major to me are major to you. So let's see how we're totally different, guys.
Oh, we're not the same.
But I gave visuals 7 out of 10. I thought it was pretty strong. Mm-hmm. Now I'm most of the things I didn't like are stuff you're going to talk about, so I'm going to leave that for you.
Okay.
So I'll just tell you what I liked. First of all, both Grey Ghost and Batman have capes. Double the cape movement. Hashtag cape movement.
The cape movement. 2 times the cape movement. No wonder you loved it.
Yes, of course. But the effects when the buildings are blowing up, the explosions, first of all, look cool. Including one of the explosions looks like the title card, like the explosion from the opening sequence.
Yes.
Which I assume was intentional, but anyway, and like the explosion was cool, and there's this very cool like lighting effect when they're standing in front of the fires. Just Batman swoops down to talk to Commissioner Gordon in front of one of the fires. We get the reappearance of the SWAT team, an old favorite if you listen to our first episode on Leather Wings.
The idiotic, incompetent SWAT team who shoot the explosive car right in front of Commissioner. Like it's like a foot and a half away from Commissioner Gordon. Has like
he has to dive out of the way.
Has like loaded with nitroglycerin, and they just shoot it with a bullet and it explodes immediately. Idiots.
Now, to be fair, that is what Commissioner Gordon did tell him to shoot it.
He did.
It almost felt like a Three Stooges routine. But anyway, for the most part, I thought it looks really good. And it's a lot of explosions, but there's also a very cool shot where they flash from Bruce in present day watching an old film reel of the Grey Ghost episode. And then it zooms in on his eye, and then you zoom back out, and it's young Bruce, and they do this really cool 360 shot.
Yeah, that was cool.
Of him watching TV, and it's sort of sepia-toned, like it's very...
the flashback.
Yeah, the flashbacks are in like a different color scheme than the regular stuff, and then it zooms back out, you get like a close, you can see the Grey Ghost reflecting in Bruce's eyes, and then you kind of zoom back out, and Bruce just has a smile on his face in present day. And again, it's what we talked about in plot of him sort of connecting back to his childhood, to a happier time. And I thought that was really good. So I gave it 7 out of 10. What about you, Cal?
Oh boy, I did not give it a 7 out of 10, Liam. And the reason, you are spot on with the things that were good. The first thing that I noticed was the lighting in that opening scene with the explosion. I thought that was awesome. That 360 shot is super cool. But that's about the highlights for me, because, man, Batman in this episode, in every scene, I don't know what happened to his face, but it was just like off-centered in the cowl. It was all twisted. Everything in this episode looked like it was animated by, like, I don't know. if you've ever watched the Strong Bad, like Homestar Runner cartoons from like the late 2000 or mid 2000s. Like there's this, we're getting super nerdy here, but there was like a section where he would draw his own cartoons, and they just looked.
The cheat would draw
the cartoons. That's right, and they would just look super wonky. It just kind of looks like, I don't know, somebody, an amateur animator tried to animate this episode. Batman looks awful. There's so many problems with Batman in this episode, and he's in it for. There's a lot of Batman in this episode. Then we noticed something about, like, I don't know, halfway through the episode, where every scene, Batman looks like he has his mouth open and you can't see his teeth. So it looks like he just, like, forgot to put dentures in.
He forgot his falsies.
Right. So he just looks like he's just... And then apparently whatever it was contagious, because then the Grey Ghost started doing the same thing, too.
If I had to guess, I think it was a miscoloring thing where you were supposed to be seeing just their teeth.
Right, the whites, right.
But instead of
like
coloring it white,
right.
Instead they colored it black, so they all just looked...
They looked toothless, and it was just so distracting. I just kept looking at you, I was like, are you seeing this? That took me way out. And anytime, here's you're right, the animation is important to me, because if the animation takes me out of the episode, man, I'm gonna poop all over that. And so, for that reason, I gave animation in this episode a 2 out of 10.
Wow.
It was bad. Even the scene with the car chase where the Batmobile's being chased by the remote control cars, it looks like, I don't know, it looks like everything is italicized, like everything is hanging to the left, like it distorted to the left. It just looks bizarre. And it's not animated well. We saw in Heart of Ice what a good chase scene, an animated chase scene looks like in the Batmobile, and this just looked like it was unfinished. They put less detail into it, and it just took me out of it. And otherwise, I love this episode, and that's the thing. I have a high standard. You know, you look back at Heart of Ice, and you say, okay, well, this is what the gold standard is. Go back to this, and you know, they're like one reversed bat away from being a 1, or you know.
Wow.
So it's not good at all. Not a fan of the animation.
So I guess
in
this was a disagreement. Do we have a sound for that?
Let's play it.
Emergency.
There we go. It is a disagreement sound effect. We finally get to use that one again. It's officially a disagreement here. All right, let's move on, Liam, to music, shall we? I'm going to make this one quick and painless for you. From the get-go, I'm pretty sure I screamed 10!
You did.
As soon as the music
exactly
starts.
what I did when we watched The Forgotten a few months back.
Yeah. It was like an instant 10 for me, based on the Grey Ghost theme alone, which you heard from the intro, hopefully, when we started here. But the Grey Ghost theme itself is just phenomenal. The fact that they wrote this theme that sounds like a superhero theme. I'm a little sad that we only got one episode with the Grey Ghost.
Yeah.
And to use this theme. But it's great. It's awesome. Even the music that accompanies the car chase, as poorly as the car chase is animated, the music that accompanies it is good. They do really great chase scene, or like motor vehicle or locomotive. There's like something when there's like a vehicle involved. They're great at getting great music to accompany it. So for those reasons, plus your classic Batman theme, punctuated perfectly, give this 10 out of 10. Perfect score for music. What about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty close behind you. I'm 9 out of 10 there. I do think there's a little bit of a heavy reliance on that Grey Ghost theme. We talked about that in some of the Superman episodes. Where it is as
but
great
it's just
as
so darn good.
It's a great theme, but it's played in almost every action sequence in the episode.
Sure.
So it to me it's really good, as you mentioned. It's pretty darn great, and I didn't hate that, and so I still gave it a 9. But I was like, there may be one or two scenes they could have laid off of it a little bit, but it's very, very good. The sequence where, as we mentioned, Bruce or Batman shows Simon Trent his nerd cave inside his Bat cave, and there's really nice soft strings at that point, and it's really well done. So I went 9 out of 10 for that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, William. So Yeah, so why don't we move on to our final category, which is going to be our voice actors, and we have some pretty well-known ones this week. I imagine you didn't have to do much research for this week.
Yeah, I didn't have to IMDb this one.
Yeah.
Adam West, obviously, playing Simon Trent, a.k.a. the Grey Ghost.
Yep.
He's very, very good. And again, as we mentioned, maybe because he was dealing with something that he had personally himself gone through, he was able to bring that to the character. But the scene where he's on the phone with his agent that we mentioned earlier, the scene with various scenes with Batman where he's sort of arguing with him it's really well done. And obviously, it's Adam West the second you hear him. He's not, it's a very distinct type of delivery, type of voice. But I thought he was very good, and obviously Kevin Conroy's great. And then some guy named Bruce Timm. Oh, Bruce Timm voiced the toy collector.
Also visually.
Also, yes, as we mentioned in visuals and in plot, I believe. Yeah, he looks like Bruce Timm. Like, it's not subtle.
Yep.
As playing, and I guess it's sort of fitting. Bruce Timm plays the nerdiest man who's ever lived, I guess.
He's so nerdy, he's willing to blow up buildings.
Yes, so he can hold the city for ransom so that he can buy more toys.
Toys away, little man.
I can't. You see, I need the money to buy more toys. I love toys. They can play songs. They can dance. They can even eat money. Oh boy, can they eat money. All my money. And then I remembered an episode of The Grey Ghost. And I knew what else a toy can do. It can carry a bomb. It can hold a city for ransom. Oh, the power of the toy. It can earn millions. Millions for the little old toy collector. Me.
I mean, I can't say that I've never thought about that before, but allegedly.
Sure, for legal reasons. But, yes.
So you had your Bruce Timm, you have Adam West, and then, of course, Kevin Conroy, Bob Hastings.
Yeah, a little bit from Zemplis Jr., #MyAlfred.
Who does a great job of reminding Bruce how much of a better person he is because he doesn't watch TV.
Yes.
He prefers his
Watch
fireplace.
television.
He watches his fireplace.
Yes, that's right.
So,
cultured Alfred, not like these kids today in 1992.
With their televisions.
Yeah,
so what was your scores for voice acting?
I went 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
Bruce Timm is bad as the bomber. He's freaking terrible. Like, this is like opening improv night, first acting class you've ever taken, acting, where I love toys, but I need more of them. And then the sobbing he does at the end when his toys all get blown up. It sucks. But everybody else is really good, so I went 8 out of 10. Like, this would have been if there was a better.
No, you're wrong.
If there was a better villain or a better villain voice, I would have given voice acting 10 out of 10.
You're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. Yes, that is the disagreement alarm.
Twice in one episode.
We're setting a new record here. Listen. Bruce Timm is perfect for this role, and I will tell you why. Because if you're going to have some idiot whose goal is to blow up buildings, I can't even say this with a straight face. His whole mindset is to hold the city for ransom to buy toys. Then why not be Bruce Timm, gosh darn it? And he sounds insane. He sounds goofy. He sounds like somebody who would hold the city for ransom for toy money. And his crying and anguish at the end is great. I don't care what you say. It is fantastic. If my toy collection burned down to the ground, boy, I would sound something just like him, for sure. So you're wrong. I gave voice acting 10 out of 10.
Wow.
My second perfect score for this episode. 10 out of 10. Oh, man. So that's where we're going to differ. That brings my final score up to 28 out of 40. But, wait, is that... I hear the bonus point sound, Liam.
We haven't heard it for a few weeks.
We haven't. It's not for me, because I don't have any bonus points. Must be for you.
I guess so, yeah. My +1 bonus point here is for the title card. It's when he first comes up and you see "Beware of the Grey Ghost," and it's very much, it looks like some of the art that is the official promotional art for Batman the Animated Series. Of you just see the eyes and the cape swirling. And I even like the font that the text appears in.
Yeah,
it's really cool, and it adds a little bit. And there's even kind of from there it goes into like a secondary title sequence where, because the episode opens with Bruce watching the show, and then you have the intro of the Grey Ghost television show.
Yeah,
so it's just really
and
well
it has
done.
a title card.
Correct. So for that main title card at the start of the episode, I just thought that's so cool. And so atmospheric, and combined with the great Grey Ghost theme, it's just tremendous. I had to give a little special shout out to that.
So Liam, if I'm not wrong, that brings your score to 30 out of 40. Is that right?
Correct.
30 out of 40. All right, so 28 out of 40 for me, 38 out of 40. Remarkable based on how terrible I thought the animation was. But that just goes to show you my perfect 10 scores brought this up for us. So it wasn't a complete and total disappointment.
No.
The nostalgia part of it, as far as rewatchability is concerned, this will be one. Yeah, absolutely watch this episode. Like this is the holy grail. It may not end up in our top 5 or 10 DCAU episodes, but as far as the original Batman the Animated Series goes, watch this episode. Don't skip it.
Yeah, no question about it. It's one of the classics. It's one of the ones you're always going to remember. And and as I said at the top of the show, it's different when you just watch it because you're a fan. And hey, the next time I watch this, it'll be as a fan, and I bet I'll love it just as much as I always have.
I don't know those scenes. I
But
might not be able to unsee that toothless Batman.
But it's just a completely different animal when you review it, or when you look at it critically or analytically. So it's definitely a fresh take. And as we mentioned, all the way back with something like Christmas with the Joker or something, sometimes the scores don't always reflect the rewatchability, as you have said multiple times. So definitely you gotta watch this one if you're gonna watch Batman.
For sure. Would recommend if you're telling people to watch this. All right, William, let's wrap it up. We are so glad that we had you with us today to listen to the 25th episode of the DCAU Review. If you've been listening to us from start to finish, we're so thankful for you, whether you listen to us on iTunes, the Google Podcast app, maybe through our website at DCAUreview.com. However you find us or listen to us, thank you so much.
Definitely not on Facebook.
Definitely not on Facebook. William, why don't they find us on Facebook?
Well, that's because Facebook is a long, disgusting, evil organization with many sleek black tentacles that control. They try to control what you see in your newsfeed, which means that even if you like our page, you won't see it unless we pay Facebook money.
William, are you calling Facebook Hydra?
Yes?
Crossover. Oh, man. William, but if people do want to find us and interact with us, where do they head over to?
You can head over to twitter.com, which is a free website.
For free.
And you can follow us at DCAU Review. We've been getting some nice feedback for the last few months here, as we've sort of gotten into a groove and really seen these episodes a little more regularly. And always like talking about it. I think if we advertise that we didn't like this as much as we thought we would, I think we're going to get blowback for this.
I think so. I'm excited to hear it.
But I invite anyone who listens or who follows us on Twitter, try to look at it from our perspective, from a critical standpoint.
Right.
And I think you'll just see sometimes when you hold stuff up to that magnifying glass, it's not quite the same. But either way, whether you agree with us or disagree with us, always love to talk about these shows on our Twitter at DCAU Review. Let us know what you think we should. We've been doing Batman again for a while, thinking about maybe starting something new again, maybe do another movie. So be sure to give us any feedback on maybe what we should review next, if you have any preferences on that. But that's the place to go.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that does it for this week. I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Goodbye.